Alright, we're back again here. We finished the NATO response. The NATO turn is done, so we're going to be moving into the next turn here, the turn track. Where'd it go? Wow, this is different. I had the turn track up before. There it is. Okay. So if we look at the turn track here, we're going to be moving into M+2. The NATO does get a few reinforcements, but we do see Warsaw Pact getting a large amount of reinforcements, and again here. So that will be helpful. We've got Soviet ones appear in East Germany. Polish ones also appear on the edge of the board near East Germany. And then the Czech ones will appear down here. The Soviet initial armored spearheads, they've taken a beating here. And even down here, and then even here we've slowed down the Czechoslovakian tanks, tank corps or divisions. So they've taken a beating. They're still reducing Berlin. These reinforcements will be very helpful. But before we actually do the turn, maybe we won't get to it this recording, because I want to cover some other rules here real quick. So as we begin the Soviet phase, first we have to worry about supply for everybody. Yeah, the headquarters is good here. So we can come down and look at the supply, but first point I want to make here is Hamburg can be a port, which is a supply source for NATO units, okay, but there's a problem. There's a river here. So the rules over here at 923 says, note that for Hamburg to be used as a port, access to the sea is required. There can be no Warsaw Pact units and hexes that are part of the river hex sides leading from Hamburg to the North Sea. This is talking about reinforcements, but I'm going to go ahead and infer that we've got this unit right here sitting on the river. No reinforcements are coming this way, and we've got zones of control pretty much all the way around. So these units are isolated. The units in Hamburg are isolated. And just to look at the supply rules here real quick. If we see here supply, some caveats here. Units, supply is judged at the beginning of each phase. Okay. Units that are out of supply generally have their movement and combat strengths halved. So we have to check supply lines coming down here. Can't be traced through prohibited hex or hex side, a hex containing enemy ground units, or an uncontested enemy zone of control. So it was a conscious decision last turn. Could have pulled one of these units out to attempt to make a supply line, but instead they stayed. So now they are isolated. We do see supply sources down here, headquarters or a port. And again, Hamburg is a port, but they've blocked it off from the river. This East German tank division has successfully cut off this port, so now they're all isolated in here. Okay. And some other rules here. Yeah, isolated, path greater than 10 hexes to a supply source. General supply 10 hexes or less. Attack supply 5 hexes or less. And you've got to be within 5 hexes of a headquarters to do, intensive supply. So we can look at the rest of these units and basically infer that headquarters can trace any length to a port or a real supply source. So all of these units are pretty much in supply. I don't see any reason why not. We didn't use the intensive supply last turn. I'm leaving the radiation markers in just for effect. They're only really supposed to be left on urban hexes and Nike hexes to indicate they've been destroyed. So I'm just leaving them in for effect. But before we actually start the Warsaw Pact phase, I want to spend a little bit of time looking at basically how you win the game, the victory points. And we can come down here to the end. Here we go. Ending the game. Game proceeds turn by turn until victory is rolled on the world opinion table. Let me see if we can show you that real quick. Oh, I didn't pull the charts up here, so let me pull it here. But you do see that potentially on the world opinion table. Wow, this is not my day to use a mouse. Here we go. You do see if you get enough modifiers here, NATO can concede here with a negative. Positive modifiers for NATO. NATO could end up with a victory down here as we try and force things here. And the world opinion table, there are, I believe it's over here on the stability track. Yeah. You see victory points, and these are the modifiers. So you can see if NATO gets really high here in world opinion, +5 on a die roll, you could end up winning that way, or if Warsaw Pact the other way, could be 2. And we see right now, 5 VP. Warsaw Pact, for some reason, is ahead in world opinion here. So, with that being said, let's take a look here some more. You can have an automatic victory if you've eliminated all units within the current scope. And that was in the escalation situation. I mean, since we're at tactical nuclear, we're at general war, the whole board is in scope. But there is a possibility, I think we covered it in previous ones, that you can, if we look at escalation, we can see right here it's East Berlin and West Berlin is the only thing. So if for whatever reason, and it's still here in incident phase, and it's still here in limited war, so potentially the war could end in victory points calculated if you're only in limited war and the Warsaw Pact player captures West Berlin, maintains East and East Germany. There's no NATO units in East Germany trying to rescue, and they capture West Berlin. The game could end right there. But we've already escalated to general war and tactical nuclear war, so our scope is the whole world. So basically, Warsaw Pact would have to eliminate every single NATO unit on the board to kick off the ending the game due to automatic victory. But notice, automatic victory is declared. You still have to calculate the victory points, so we need to look at that. Another technique to end the game is for a side to declare a ceasefire or to offer a ceasefire. The other side doesn't have to take advantage of it, but there is advantage. Every time a side offers a ceasefire and the other side refuses, this moves 1 for that side. So let's say NATO started offering ceasefires and the Warsaw Pact said no. It would start moving this way, and it would kick a world opinion roll. If this got high enough, you know, and a modifier, and you go to that world opinion roll, here we go. It is entirely possible you could roll a NATO victory or a Warsaw Pact victory. So that needs to be taken into effect. Now to pull that off, so there's some limitations. If you want to try and offer a ceasefire, you can't enter any new enemy zones of controls, can't conduct any combat, can't conduct any air missions, can't use nuclear weapons, and moved any units towards his opponent's friendly board edge. So let's say NATO wanted to do ceasefire, they would have to basically freeze in place. Units already in enemy zones of control can sit there. Okay. So that could potentially be a strategy beyond conventional, beyond nuclear, to attempt to win the war by offering ceasefires and world opinion, shifting world opinion, and then getting a good roll on the opinion table. With that being said, usually we're going to do it with victory points. All right. And victory points, last person to be in an objective hex. And actually you can see that the points for objective hex are on here, terrain effects chart. And we see it's dense urban, 5 VPs. Except for West Berlin, which whoever holds it gets 10 VPs. Okay, so that's Motivates the NATO to keep it and motivates Warsaw Pact to try and take it. But guess what? These points are invalidated. They're gone if a tactical nuke or a strategic nuke has been executed on that urban hex. So, in a sense, if you want to capture something, like let's take for example here, if there's a lot of points here, that's 15 points for Hamburg. So it'd be in the Warsaw Pact's best interest to hopefully capture this and get the 15 VPs. I mean, as opposed to just doing tactical nukes here, you may destroy the German units. I believe they're all German. Yeah. But by the same token, if you tactical nuke or a nuclear attack an urban hex, it goes to 0 victory points. So kind of a two-edged sword. But by the same token, throwing nukes out on dense urban hexes denies your opponent those victory points at the end of the game too. So potentially the Soviets could say, well, let's just start dropping nukes on all the urban hexes, and we know that then they won't get the 5 VPs. Again, we won't get them either, but it boils down to VPs. In real life, that just seems crazy, but once nuclear weapons start flying, logic seems to have gone out the window. So the best thing to do is not go there. You get unit losses, you get victory points equal to the combat strength of the eliminated unit. Exiting units off the map equal to their combat strength. So NATO potentially somehow is exiting this way, or the Warsaw Pact is exiting off of this edge to show further progress there. So that's another source of victory points. And then we may get into later homeland losses if we go to strategic combat. And then collapse. We've talked about that in the stability track. If we can drive a country to collapse, we get victory points equal to its population. But then we don't get the losses. But we still get points for urban hexes. So let's say West Germany, for example, they're at 21. If Warsaw Pact wanted to collapse them, they're going to have to get another, I have to do this math in my head here, 25, 31, 35. Probably 35 more points here, adding those. And here we see loss of a dense urban is 1. Loss of a division or 2 brigades is 1. You can do it here. Here's the big return. If you drop a nuke on an urban hex, you get 5. So, yeah, if they wanted to just start dropping nukes on maybe 7, 7 urban hexes that they haven't already hit. They hit 2 down here. They could try and force a collapse, but again, they wouldn't get the victory points either. They'd get their population, they'd have to calculate it. So there's a lot more to this game in calculation and actually winning. Now, again, if once you start dropping nukes in real life and it escalates to strategic, you're the winner in victory points, but I don't know what you're the winner of. So that's just a interesting concept to chew on there. So what I did to show where we are in this current game is, I made a spreadsheet here in Excel. And basically I included all the things. These are all the urban hexes. And then this is who owns them. And you see West Berlin is at 10. Here's some unique stuff. If we look, and I did this one for this game. So the NATO, or the Soviets in this case, has going after the headquarter units. The U.S. core headquarter units also ended up putting nuclear weapons on Mannheim and Stuttgart. So that basically means nobody gets any points for them. Hence I put zeros here. The Soviets sent all 5 of their airborne units. We talked about that last time. On the first turn, the wall was crossed, so they got 5 victory points for that. I did get this wrong. World opinion. Let's look at this here. Actually, I thought it was just one, but it's really 5 VPs for that. The Soviets, or the Warsaw Pact at 5 VPs, so I'll modify that on my spreadsheet here. And then I've calculated the losses here. And basically all I did was, I'm going to close this, get back to my spreadsheet here. And I did the math. I'm not going to go through it here, but basically NATO has lost 55 strength points and the Warsaw Pact so far 41. Nobody's gone off map. Nobody's collapsed yet. When we talk about homeland, that's strategic nuclear warfare. So if I wanted to do a quick, I think I can do this. If I wanted to do a quick calculation here, I would look here and let's see. I probably can do a little Excel magic here, hopefully. Yeah, I think that's right. 136 versus Warsaw Pact having nowhere near that, to be honest. Yep, they have this. Oops, got the wrong one. There. 80. So at this point, if the war ended for some reason, obviously NATO is still ahead. So something to keep an eye on, because this is not just a purely conventional war. We are dealing with world opinion potentially, and we did see the track for that does, if you drive this up, the victory points are okay. They're pretty good, but especially if you get on the world opinion table with some heavy duty modifiers like -5, okay? So, if I roll with a -5, that means, well, I got to roll a 2 still. It looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, but still, that puts that on the table, and France declares neutrality, UK declares neutrality, they withdraw. Well, that doesn't really happen, so these two could happen too. And so you could have some effects here. So something to keep an eye on. Okay. So that was our little background here on more of the game here, just teaching, going through and explaining it. So I'm already at 17 minutes explaining this, so hopefully you found that useful if you're wanting to learn the game. So my next recording will be the Soviet or the Warsaw Pact phase, starting with rolling for air units. I think I've got this on here, yeah. Sequence of play. Yep. So we'll do the air phase. And NATO got only a 1 last time, and they used it for a strike. And then we'll do the reinforcement phase, and you do see a lot of reinforcements coming in here. And then the movement phase and the combat phase. But once again, we've got the asterisks. Nukes can start flying sequentially back and forth again during both these phases. So looking at our board, do a little strategy talking. Right now, thanks to the nukes, nobody's in range of anybody. As we start the turn, let me see if that's really true. It may not be true down here. Well, here, the only U.S. unit is back here, and so that's a range of 2. U.S. headquarters, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so they've pretty much eliminated everybody in range. So this again starts like that first turn of combat, where the Soviets, the Warsaw Pact, or the Soviets in this case, could be selective. These units could drive up and try and eliminate units. Maybe the first target is to push this core headquarters back because it can launch tactical nukes, but I don't know how far you'll move it. This is the UK. The only units on NATO's side that can do tactical nukes are US and UK. So, and actually there are no Soviets here. Wait, this is a Soviet HQ, so this one could, it has 5 salvos, so It could move up and try and, well, it can try and knock one of these back, but then one of these could return fire and knock it back. So we'll see. Coming down here, this is the only tactical nuke threatening unit. It would be nice to get rid of this. So if the Soviets have an airstrike, maybe they should go after here, and then all the Czechs are safe to move through here. With no units, NATO could move up. U.S. could move these up later too, but also if they can put pressure through here. So it's still a valid strategy to try and take out the delivery units, the headquarters push them back, or the few U.S. units on the board, try and eliminate them before they can fire back. And even though the Soviets have, Warsaw Pact has lost some units here, they're still getting a pile of reinforcements, and hopefully they can finish off West Berlin. So yeah, it actually still looks good for the Warsaw Pact. I mean, if you could say that, considering all of this going on. So let's end it here. I've actually gone 20 minutes just explaining the rules, but this is I've had some comments where people have said they've played this game and they've just focused on the conventional. Doing this nuclear is, adds a dimension to the game, taking into effect stability, world opinion. I think it brings a whole dimension that this game that you may not necessarily see in other Third World War, games. I mean, I do own a few myself. I do own MMPs. I think it's the SCS game. I forgot what it's called. Cold War. I just got my copy of Compass Games Third World War. I've got the other one, I think Doomsday. I've got that one too. I've got NATO, so take a look at all of them. Kind of maybe do some comparative stuff here. But this is an interesting dimension here, the whole world opinion stability and actual nuclear warfare. So hopefully you found this interesting. If not, don't worry, the next recording will be the Soviet phase. So thanks for listening.